Okay, there we go. All righty. Yeah, just again, you've seen the syllabus. Next time I'm going to be talking about how we can do sort of remote network control of processes. And that's when we're going to start really learning a lot about the internet, especially things like network address translation and port forwarding and other fun topics that I've been exploring here at home. After that, I want to show you how to set up your own kind of broadcast node so that you can take this process and then make it available for everybody to hear, which I think would be kind of fun. And it looks like that I have not succeeded in doing that yet, but it looks like it's not going to be too tricky. And then on the 18th is when we have Miller Puckett and Damon Holtzborn talking about that quack trip. Then there's Thanksgiving, and yeah, we're also going to have a special guest, a guy named Ross Whiteman is going to be coming in next time because I want to cover some other kind of interesting aspects of the internet. He's a graduate student at Yale, and I was talking to him about some stuff, and yeah, it seemed like he was doing some. I just asked him to just talk for about 20 minutes or so about what he's doing. So that's where we are, and it's my distinct pleasure now to introduce our special guest tonight, Lara Lewison. I remember when I met Lara, she came into my office and was wondering about my computer music class. And I said, well, have you had any real experience? And she said, no. And I said, oh, but you're interested? She said, yeah. She said, here, I'll show you some of the stuff I've done. And she pulled out put up on her computer some graphics. And I thought, oh, wow, she knows how to use Blender. Oh, what a thrill. I had no idea. This is just a walking bundle of amazing technical talent with a really, really interesting artistic perspective on it. Of course, I let her into my seminar, and she took the class last year when the whole year was devoted to Unity. Now, with her presentation tonight, you're going to get a little bit of a look into the future because she's been doing some amazing Unity projects, especially using Unity on the web. Nicola, this is going to be really interesting for you because she's kind of solved the problem that you're hoping to solve. So I'm going to have her.
I'm very much looking forward.
Yeah. So I'm going to have her come back and talk probably next semester too. But I also asked her to show a bunch of her earlier work so that you can get an appreciation of just kind of how she sort of found her way through in this world. And in the meantime, she's been doing astounding work. She won the Sudler Prize at Columbia, which is kind of a big deal. It's the one big art prize that we give to graduating undergraduates. She graduated last year. So yeah, in the middle of the good old COVID virus pandemic. Anyhow, so I could say a lot more about her, but I'm just going to let her talk because that's, I do have something. Anthony was saying, what were we listening to? That was a Armenian dudek player named Dvijan Gasparian. Just amazing work. All of his music is just gorgeous. So anyhow, okay. So I'm going to turn it over to Lara and let's see what she has to say. All right, Lara, go for it.
Hello, I'm Lara. I am a violinist and painter, digital artist.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention that. She's like this insane violinist. She's like played with the Seattle Symphony, and it's just like, yeah, you'll see some of that work in what she showed. Sorry, Lara, sorry to interrupt, but I needed to let people know you're not just a violinist; you're a violinist.
Thank you. So today I'm going to bring you through my journey throughout last year. And I'm going to first start with the first project that I worked on. So last year, after Brad showed us his own VR projects, I was looking through my own files and like cleaning up all the garbage that was in my downloads, and I found these photos from my mom's pregnancy journal, which I had taken and sent to a friend and then forgot about. And here, share screen. So this is the journal that I found. And in this journal, she talks about this time that she snuck into my dad's company where they were developing an ultrasound machine, and she decided to take one of me. And I was really interested in this um, kind of experience that I was having, like looking back at a journal that my mom had written before I was born to my future self. And then I was also retrieving something from my own archive. Um, and that seemed like an interesting idea for a virtual reality experience. So I had this idea to create an environment where the person who was in the VR experience was kind of going through a kind of similar weird time zone where you are reading something from the past to your future self, but then, like, are you inside or are you outside? And at the same time, I was also had received this folder of photos of orchids from my friend, and I had made these collages. It was an orchid farm that she had visited with her late father. Um, and these are, I mean, sorry. I make a lot of these digital collages, 2D collages in Photoshop. And the way that I do it, let's see, how do I do that? Second. Is I use this tool called the bandage tool. And what it does is it kind of compares certain pixels from one area, and then let's open this up. Here, what I do. This tool is often used for like retouching photos, but what I do is I just sort of take an area and you can sort of collage in this way. Because I had done a lot of these two-dimensional collages, I wanted to find a way to have the same level of detail and like experience of texture in three-dimensional space. But so I'm going to now open Blender. When you 3D models are made out of these meshes that are created from polygons. And so this is sort of what they look like. They're made out of vertices and these faces. These spaces are sort of defined by planes, and the planes all have a normal vector that is perpendicular to all of them. But this model, it has a lot of these sharp edges, and that wasn't like I was imagining sort of a texture with a lot of ridges, kind of cave-like. I'd recently visited these caves in Vietnam. And so I was looking around to see what are like different solutions so that you can have a very detailed model in a detailed 3D model without creating something with a bunch of vertices that is going to take a bunch of so that you don't have to render all of those different planes. And so the solution that I found was by using normal maps. So this is how the lighting would normally interact with the planes is it would just kind of bounce right off. With normal mapping, you can create the illusion of more texture than is actually on the shape um, by creating these like sort of representations of like where these bumps could be based on the RGB values that are in these images. So then what I did, changes, is I tried out making these in Unity. Reload. So in this scene, what I've done is I've made a bunch of these shapes that kind of look like this. They don't have the same level of detail that is on this, but I've created that by making normal maps out of pieces of the collage. So another important thing, like for me in this scene, as you explore, was to be able to engage in that act of looking by like discovering pieces of the journal as if you're sort of conducting an ultrasound on yourself or some imagined like pre-existing state. And so what I did is I created these triggers. So in Unity, all of these objects on the left are called game objects, and they are basically containers for these different components. So this has a sort of mesh and a material which kind of lays on top of it. And then I've also added a collider so that you can use Unity's physics system. And so I've marked this as a trigger. And then when you run into this trigger, so here's what's moving around. I have there's a script. So basically it takes your key inputs in this method, which is in the, sorry, it basically checks to see if you are pressing a certain key every single frame, and then it moves that object in space. And so I've attached this camera component also to it. And there's also a physics component, a rigid body component, which makes it so that you can interact with the physics. So in this scene, when you run into the trigger, it runs an RTCMake script, and it's just the RT input instrument, and it reads from this file, and then it sends it at a certain time. So I asked my mom to record herself reading from the pregnancy journal, and she sent it to me. And here's a demonstration, if I can get back to that folder. Okay, I'm gonna share, oops. Share screen, share computer set. Okay. So I did this demonstration at Anthology Film Archives. And in this demonstration, I'm just using my keys to move through the scene.
Amazingly, we saw the baby. It was real. Amazingly, we saw the baby. It was real. Amazingly, we saw the baby. We sneakily used one of our ultrasound machines that was under development. We only saw sneakily using.
All right.
Hey, Lara.
Yeah.
So the only feedback you get that you've actually encountered one of your trigger objects is when the sound gets played, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's no like it doesn't explode or anything like that.
Mm.
Cool. Yeah, really. Yeah. Well, I've seen this. I know, so it's cool.
Since I ended up adapting once Corona started, and I no longer had access to like powerful computers and VR headsets for any of the projects that I was working on. I built a lot of my projects for WebGL. I'm gonna open up the Unity thing again. All right. So because go. Since the RTC Mix library is not available for WebGL, I ended up just changing my scripts to use the Unity audio. And so this does the same exact thing, except I used separate clips for all of them.
Hey, Lara. I want
Mhm.
to point out something. I meant to tell you this earlier. Doug Scott came up with a really great idea. I think we're going to be able to get Unity and RTC Mix WebGL working together. I hope to be able to do it over the break. So cool.
Yeah. So another way that I kind of oh, sorry, this is just so here's what the WebGL build looks like. You can see that the lighting, that there's not as much detail. The lighting's a lot simpler. Those like little point lights that I had throughout the scene. So this is sort of what it looked like.
Arms and heart, which was beating.
When I went back home for winter break, I saw that I had this dollhouse that I started working on with my dad when I was 11 or so years old. And we had planned to put working electricity in it. And I was collecting all of these things throughout my childhood, little miniatures. And I thought that another way for me to have like a more control over how I'm building a scene in, or how the scene visually looks in Unity, um, is by creating a physical space and then taking 360 photos of it. So I'm gonna share this screen again. This is what the dollhouse looked like. Yeah. Oops. Here's the scale. So from top to bottom of the room is 8 inches, and I installed this copper tape with little brads because I didn't solder all the connections. It was very fragile. I had to do all these connections over and over again. But basically, when you put one of these light bulbs across these tapes, it puts it into the circuit. And then I borrowed this camera. Sorry, this is the only photo I have of it. But this is a 360-degree camera. It has 6 fisheye cameras, and when you take a photo, it takes 6 different photos. So this is the upstairs room. And so everything in this scene was like something I collected in my childhood. Like these are little bits of a little disco ball that I had. And I also chopped up paintings. I really like reusing my materials. And what I then did, I keep closing that. Is I use this stitching software to basically compare these images to each other, and then so here's kind of what it looks like before you use a specific software, because the focal length of the camera was supposed to be much more than like this distance. You saw the camera was very situated in there. And so then when you use the stitching software, you're comparing pixels between 2 of the photos. Like it'll kind of try to find what group of pixels look like another group of pixels, and you can tell it sort of where to look. So when you stitch the photos, this is kind of what they look like. It's in this equirectangular format, which means everything on the top and the bottom kind of gathers at one point if you're looking at it in a 360 view. Here's another photo of that. But you see, like there's a lot of funny stuff going on because I couldn't, like, no matter how powerful the software that I was using was, it couldn't quite figure that out. Where did I put that?
We have a question from Nicola.
Yeah.
He's wondering which software you used for this.
I was using Mystica VR. It's very powerful. I don't know if I would recommend it just because it was really expensive. I was paying $50 a month for it. But if you're doing like if you're working on something where you can't use another piece of software, then it's really great, and it's good for editing 360 videos as well. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, I was making these projects originally for the VR headset. Unfortunately, I don't have any photos of what that looks like, but I was experimenting with using live video input from another 360 camera so that you could place yourself in the scene. And I did, this is a selfie I took, I'll explain it in a bit. I did this exercise where basically I was taking live input from the 360 camera and I put it in a scene in Unity. And then with the VR headset, you're kind of looking in the direction of the like virtual camera in Unity. So in this photo, what I'm doing is I have a camera which I'm holding in this hand, and it's looking at the room, and then I have a sphere in Unity which I'm pointing at using the headset, and then I'm taking a photo of the screen. I did this exercise also where I had the camera sort of somewhere in the room and put the virtual camera in the center of the sphere where it wraps. And then I told someone with a headset to try to give me a high five. And so what you have to do is you sort of have to find yourself, find me in this scene, and then like walk in that direction. So let's see if this works. Here's a demonstration of one of the scenes that I built once I was no longer able to use the VR headset. I thought I should just make these applications for the web. And so you can see what like when I was designing this scene, I also kind of had in mind the like act of physically sort of moving around to change what's going on in the scene, and like sort of seeing yourself outside and inside at the same time. Thanks, Josh. Okay, so Corona time. Don't have access to VR headset. I was doing programming for like the headset and the controllers, and I was very excited about the HTC Vive system because there are also these cameras which can detect where you are, so you can walk around and it looks like you're actually walking around. But I now have to like think about how I'm going to adopt my projects, and as well like how to think about performance when I want to be playing with people. I want to be doing stuff live, but I no longer can be with other musicians. So a group of my friends started this Facebook group called Open Improvisations, and every Sunday night people put on these 10-minute sets and they live stream from their own homes, and everyone goes wild in the comments. So I thought that I would like to do something with the comments. My friend, let's share my screen. What should I open up? I'm just gonna open up the New York Times, if that's okay. I have this Chrome extension that
we don't have
that does text to speech, and so this is sort of a like accessibility tool that makes it easier to read. But basically, you select some text.
some work sites, including in public services, factories.
I was also sort of like browsing through Brad's documentation for RTC Mix, and I was reading about the convolve instrument. So what I did is I was looking in the Max example files to see a convolution example. Enable load. Desktop. Share. Am I sharing my computer sound? Let me do that again. Yes.
You were, yeah.
Oh, good.
That's good.
All right. Let's make sure that this is going out.
For those who don't know what convolution
device.
is, it's a way of mapping the characteristics of one sound onto another sound. So you wind up with kind of a hybrid of the two.
Yeah. I'm just gonna open up that. Where was it? Do you know where the examples overview? Yeah. So I decided to just take experiment with convolution myself. So this is sort of so it kind of like filters one of the sounds to the other. So that's the left. And I decided that I wanted to use the text-to-speech tool to send the comments in and also play violin at the same time. So here's what it sounds like, and then I'll bring you through how I did it. Here's me testing out. Okay, I'll play that one more time. All right. So what I did is so Chrome audio goes to your system audio. So when I was playing this, I sent my Chrome audio to Soundflower, right? And then I created some, how do I open this? Here. I created an aggregate device with Soundflower, and then this is the recorder that I was using. And I sent that here. Well, now I'm going to do mic and Soundflower, but before it was the H4 and Soundflower, to channel. And then I sent that out to my built-in plus Soundflower 64 channels. Yeah. So let's see if I can demonstrate this now. This is something, oh, wait, I'm going to stop share. And I'm going to use Soundflower 64 channel as my speaker. Or my microphone, sorry. There we go.
You're very filtered right now.
Okay, so what's happening now? No, is it fine? All right, so I'm sorry. All right, I'm just gonna pull up the demonstration that I did on Facebook. So here's the Facebook group that I'm in, and place on this. So as this is happening, am I sharing my screen? No. Okay, here we go. So I'll play a little bit of this.
Maybe you need to get something off your chest. Maybe you can show me your favorite poem that you read today.
I'm selecting and playing.
You're not in these affairs and I'm not in these affairs around here right now. Besides, I'm done since pain is our things firstly. Besides, I'm done since pain is their elongated plan of bugs is elongated and broad, and the bugs are all relatively long-necked. Albeit not as long-necked as the geese and swans. The body shape of diving ducks very similar in being more rounded.
Lara, that's just amazing. Okay, I want to take a minute and just kind of walk through this conceptually to see that I've got it correct, what you've done here. Okay, basically, you're taking the text of the comments that are coming in on Facebook. You're then using the text-to-speech plugin for Chrome to convert it into audio. You're routing the audio of Chrome via that Soundflower mechanism. I think if people don't know what that is, we'll put it online. Soundflower was taking it and shuttling it into MaxMSP, where it's being convolved, right? And then from there, it's just going out to your regular output, and that's what then goes out to Facebook so that people can hear it.
Yes.
Okay.
There's also this step of my violin audio is also coming in.
Into MaxMSP, right?
Into MaxMSP.
Yeah.
And that's what it's being convolved with, is the violin audio and the text-to-speech.
Yeah.
Right.
So the text-to-speech is almost being used as like a filter for the sounds.
Yeah.
From my violin.
And that's all being done in real time.
Mm-hmm.
That's live. Yeah.
Yeah, that's live, and it would be nice if I had more than two hands. What can you do?
Okay.
Can I ask something very quick?
Yeah.
Does this text-to-speech engine keep playing in the background even if you don't play anything with the violin, or do they trigger each other simultaneously?
They don't trigger each other. I was playing it by selecting and then playing. I mean, I set some keyboard shortcuts so it was a little bit faster, but I was like selecting it to play.
Yeah, Artun, some depends on what you select as carrier and modulator in your convolution setup, because you can actually have the violin act as a gate of sorts so that no sound would be passed. It would be zeros when it was silent. And then when the violin would trigger, that would allow the stuff to come out, depending on how you set up your convolution scheme.
And also, did you make any changes to the convolution workshop patch? Or is it exactly as it is from
No,
the...
well, because it's mono. I used just a little RTC mix object to like create some motion with the panning so that it was almost like it's like whispering around your head. But pretty much no. The only thing that I did is I set which inputs are coming in and what's like on the output end. All right. What do I talk about next? My some of my WebGL projects. Okay, I'm going to share first from my website. One of my interactive projects. So I might talk about this in the spring, but I've been working on generating meshes procedurally. So basically, you're generating a bunch of triangles along a plane, and then you tell it like what height it should be. And so it's like on the X and Z plane, and then on the Y plane, I'm using a sort of smooth noise function called Perlin noise to generate a terrain. And then I made a sort of a box out of these meshes, and then made every point on the box equidistant from the center, so that I made a sphere. So first I'll show this project, and then I'll open it up in Unity. The WebGL audio is pretty limited, so I can't, here, I'll pull that up. Basically, here we go. Basically, you can use only these settings in Unity. And the RTC mix is also not available. So I recorded a bunch of little clips of myself playing violin, and then just set those clips. Here we are. All right, so this is what the scene looks like. This is a painting that I did that is on the inside of a sphere. So instead of sort of the normals pointing outwards, the normals are inwards. So the planes are on the inside of the sphere. And then this is reflecting this shape that was procedurally generated is also reflective, so that kind of when you move around, when I rotate, you can see this motion that's kind of more organic, which I wasn't sure how to get without like writing some complicated shader.
Lara,
Yeah.
are you inside your procedural mesh when you run the application then?
I'm not.
You're
So
out on the outside, you're looking down on it then.
You are looking down on it.
Like a satellite.
1 second. All right, here's my camera. My camera is attached to this guy, which is at the very center of the sphere. So when I rotate this, the camera also rotates. And you can see what that looks like here. And then you have an audio listener that is also attached here. This is an audio listener. So it's along the edge of the sphere. And then these audio sources are like on this, they're located like at different points on the sphere. Here are some of the settings that are possible to use within WebGL. You sort of have a minimum distance at which the volume starts to change. There's a maximum distance at which you can hear the audio. There's also some Doppler effect that you can use. And in addition to that, I made these audio mixers that are grouped in two different groups for like X and Y direction. So with these audio mixers, I created different snapshots for this one, it's just volume, but there are different kind of settings that you can add here. Such as some EQ, whatever you like. And these snapshots correspond to different speeds that you're going like throughout the scene. So here we are. It gets your, wait, actually, here's the move with mouse. Okay, let's look that up. So it gets this rigid body first. And then it checks to see if your mouse button is up or not. If you've clicked and dragged and lifted up with a mouse, then it gets the sort of, it makes you go a certain speed according to the frame rate. And it adds a torque, which is a rotational force in a certain direction. For the audio, where's my, all right, here's the snapshots. So it
Lara?
checks to see whether, what?
Quick question. So you're rotating the procedural mess object that you produce, correct?
You're rotating yourself.
Yourself, okay.
Mm-hmm. You're rotating yourself around.
Around that object.
You're rotating yourself around that object, and
I
then
understand.
the listener, which is basically what it's calculating your distance between that and any of these audio sources at any given time.
Okay.
It's rotating that also around, so it's one like line that's going all the way around.
Right, and you're always aimed in at that mesh that you generated then, because you never look away from it. I see.
You're
That's
always
what I wasn't
aimed
sure about.
at it, and it also, whenever you drag, it checks once you lift up to see how fast you're going, or it checks to see whether you're in certain groups in both X and Y directions. So in this, in the second one that I showed, I also have snapshots for the mixers where it changes the pitch as well. Okay, so the most recent project that I've been working on is an extension of the dollhouse project that I started. Because I imagined the dollhouse as being kind of a social space where everyone is also kind of engaged in that like act of looking at stuff that is small. And Corona times really made me crave social interaction as well, and finding different ways of like using virtual tools for intimacy, I guess. So I have actually, you know what? I'm gonna give you.
Should I drop the link?
Josh is gonna drop the link. If you want to just load that up and in the background, because it takes a little bit to load, then we can go into it a little bit later. Josh is lowering. Okay. So I'm going to open this up in Unity. So in this project, what I wanted to be able to do is see other people represented spatially. I wanted to have a chat. And I also I wanted it to be a space that that multiple people could contribute to. A common feature in my art is that I like to invite contributions, and not just contributions, but like sort of make pieces for the people who are in my life, because those are the people who are going to see my art. So I built a scene. Let me share my screen. That is made up of these boxes that are buildable. So I was making these 3D or these 360 photos of I took these 360 photos of the dollhouse, and I just used where is this? Like, I converted it to this other format that basically sorry, I'm not terribly good at multitasking. So here's this tool that you can use to convert that equirectangular format into a cube map. So these are all the sides of a cube, and in Unity you can see that everything is constructed as cubes as well. In order to connect everyone, I needed to make a client application that everyone can visit, and a server application that lives on a virtual machine. So I used DigitalOcean, which is a cloud service. And a virtual machine basically acts like a regular machine, but you can connect to it through your terminal. So this virtual machine has its own IP address, and you use your terminal to connect to it. And I put my application also on a Docker so that it can run all the time.
Lara,
Yes.
quick question: is the virtual machine is just running a flavor of Linux, correct? Like, are you Ubuntu or Debian or something?
Ubuntu.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another quick question. How much is that costing you?
Right now, I think it's costing me $5 a month.
That's what I thought. Yeah, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
This is important. We're going to be talking about this in the next couple of classes for some other things too. So,
So,
quite a few of the class members are in your thing now.
Huh? Oh, they are?
Yeah.
I'm not there yet.
We're fully gaming.
We're fully gaming. Let me just make sure that I'm not showing my stuff. Am I showing my screen? Okay. All right. So basically, messages back in between each of the clients who are connected and the server, and then back out to everyone else. So in the update method, or let's see. So you're sending your position every 0.5 seconds to everyone. You're sending your X, Y, and Z. And then I included these characters so that you can tell Unity to look for certain parts of the message that are divided up by characters. So you're sending a message of a certain length with all of your positions every 5.5 seconds. And then I also have this chat box that I made with a user interface element in Unity. And when you click the send button, it also sends a string to everyone else along with your name and your connection ID. So whenever someone connects, they send their name to everyone, and then also your connection ID, which is a separate number for everyone. And then when you're connected, you are receiving everyone's like a message from everyone with their position and their name, and that's how you see everyone. When you connect, you also spawn a player. So here we are. When you spawn your player, you add this component, which is a separate script that I wrote that can control how you move, and you add a tag for yourself as this player. So when you move through the scene, you are going through different triggers. So let's open one of these. So these are triggers, and I have scripts that tell that basically enable other scripts to load. And within those scripts, I'm also downloading media. So as you move through the scene, you are downloading audio files and images, and you can also download like bundles of assets that can include like 3D models. So the more you move through the scene, the more stuff gets like downloaded and then also cached. So it should be faster every time as well. If any of you have, I'm gonna game with you soon, but if you've gotten to this, then it also will download these textures. So the trigger for that is somewhere over here, When you first connect, it downloads the audio file for Into the Cave Room. If you move through the scene, you should also see that in this like purple plasticky room. There are audio files, short audio files that download when you enter trigger. So here is one of these controls. All right. So there's a trigger, I can't exactly find it here, but there's a trigger for the front of the room that starts downloading all of the files. And when they appear, you can also see these meshes that appear, and these buttons are enabled so that you can play the sound. When you get to the back side of the room, you'll see that those also appear once the files are downloaded, so you can play them. But I basically structured this so that you're not downloading too much stuff, so that you are not like downloading everything at the start as well, because the loading time is already really long because I wanted these detailed textures on the sides. But basically throughout the scene, if I wanted to sort of build on the other sides as well, you could go through a different path and be downloading stuff as you go along. I also have these, so the rocks in this scene are audio sources as well. So when you go up to the rocks, you should hear it kind of spatially somewhat. And yeah, there are triggers for these videos. In WebGL, there's not the option to use spatial audio for video for some reason.
Hey, Laura?
Yeah?
I'm going to interrupt. I got a couple of questions for you, too, okay? Just hold on to that thought for a second. First of all, Anthony wants to know if what is it that stops the files from repeatedly triggering if you're just sitting on top of the trigger? My understanding is that Unity will only trigger pretty much once when you go through the thing, right?
So there's a, let me open one of these up.
We've got another question from Nicola after that.
So here, you can see this, right? I'm sharing my whole screen. Okay.
Yes,
it checks to see if it's you. So at the very beginning, when you connected, you added a tag to yourself. So it checks to see if it's you. And then it starts these coroutines that run along with each other, all sort of at the same time. And once I actually haven't, like for this specific one, it does download over and over again when you re-enter. But I can also set it, like I can set a Boolean at the top that's like either true or false. And I can say like, if it has played, so I'll say like has played equals false. And then at the end of something playing, I'll set it to equal true. And then like it will only play if it's false, basically. That's
and Nicola, what Lara was saying about coroutines, that's the answer to your question. He was wondering if you can be uploading material while users are using it. Basically, they can load asynchronously, and they will signal when they've completely loaded, and then you can access that particular resource.
I also had an issue in one of my first versions where because every single player has a rigid body component attached to them, they can, when a collision happens to a trigger, if you don't if you don't specify, then it happens for everyone in the scene if a rigid body is hitting a collider. So I was having like people playing videos and then stopping each other's videos when they went up. But that's something that I didn't specify in the skin room, the Sphinx cat room at the end. So if anyone in that room hits a trigger, then it should trigger for everyone else as well. Is there anything else? Yeah, this is basically what I was saying. I was like, if it has played already, then it's not going to play automatically, but I also made a little button UI element so that you can replay the audio when you enter the trigger again. Yes. What was the other question?
It was about the coroutines and loading
Okay.
and accessing resources.
Yeah.
I like how the rocks make you auto jump. Bouncing over the rocks.
Yeah. So this project, sorry, go ahead.
Actually, before we leave the triggers, one thing people should know is that there's also different kinds of triggers. There's an on-entry trigger and an on-exit trigger, so that you can be very sophisticated in how you set up your objects and how they're going to respond to triggering.
Right.
You know, you just have to think through the logic of what you want to have happen.
Yeah. I also did that so that, like, if I have a script and I have an update method in that script, then it's constantly for every frame, then it's checking what's happening in the scene. So I wanted to disable those also when I exited triggers. Yeah. Here, I'm gonna share, I'm gonna go on. Is that okay?
Yeah, this is just amazing. I think we have like 3 or 4 different ways of communicating with each other now. There's your chat thing in the window. There's this Zoom thing. And then you and Joshua are having ex parte communications over there.
Which button is melee?
I'm gonna share this. Okay, so I'm gonna, I don't see the chats from before, so if people were going wild in the chat, I have no idea. This is a 360 image that I made out of my friend's textiles using the same tool in Photoshop. She sent me a folder of textiles, and I basically I used one of the 360 photos that I had taken before, which also had this metadata with the name of the camera, so that I could also upload it to Facebook and use their 360 tool. Whoa, there's people here. Whoa, you can jump. So I stitched that in that way. And this is also a space that I'm planning to build as large as it can be, if I can make it more efficient and so that it's not downloading stuff that it doesn't need to. I can just keep building on different rooms. I'm gonna share without computer sound so I can speak. So these are, you don't hear that, right? Okay, good. So these are videos of like installation performance that I did in the basement of a church in Bushwick in the shower room with my friend Natalie, who did the sound. And I constructed these fabric. I was given like recycled fabrics from people, and I made like a projection surface off of it. And these are, this is the dollhouse, and then this is also sort of put together in Photoshop. I also have a script that attaches to the camera so that you can look with your mouse. So it detects like where your mouse is in X and Y directions, and it points you in that direction. But to actually move, I wanted to separate that so that you can move in 3D space. You can jump with the space bar, and then you can rotate the direction that you're going with your arrow keys or WASD. And yeah, in this room, you probably, this is my friend's project. I'm also loading the images. As you press this button, it's getting the images from the same subdomain. I'm using cPanel to do my file transfer FTP stuff. And then over here, this is a very similar thing that's happening in my project with the violin paintings, where you can click and drag, but you're actually moving the ball itself rather than yourself. Yeah, that's it. Contributions are open. Just send me an email. Unfortunately, with WebGL, the only audio file type that you can download is WAV, so you can't use compressed formats like MP3. And that kind of puts a limit on a sort of reasonable download time. So I kind of was telling people per clip, probably a max of like 40 seconds each, or a bunch of little ones that you can then, like, maybe I can build another room where you trigger, you like download a bunch of small ones really quickly, but then it's interesting because you can interact with them. Yeah.
Lara, I've got a question for you. When you're inviting contributions and people send you their scenes, this was actually kind of difficult for me when I was doing my separate scenes of the project that I did. I didn't think through very clearly how to kind of integrate one scene in with the others, and it was kind of messy. Have you come up with a pretty good plan for when somebody sends you, say, some Unity code, how you then build that into your application?
Mm-hmm. So the way I'm building this scene is, here, let me show this again. Sharing the screen. I built these room prefabs. So if someone wanted to do an entire room, then they can have this as the constraint. And then, like, maybe they want their own scripts for sound. I think for now I'm gonna keep the like how you move to be the same across the board. But within the scene, if you want to like trigger other things involving your own media, then that's possible. Yeah, so far my contributions have been that I've been receiving. I mean, I've only been receiving them for a week, and I already have a bunch of stuff in there, which is awesome. So far, I've just been like writing my own scripts to download the media. Yeah.
I still have a question. I'm
Yes.
sorry. I mean, I asked this before, but like, let's say, could you host like a live performance of people in that virtual space? Let's say using Jacktrip or something.
I haven't tried to do that. I don't really know much about Jacktrip. I think the first thing that I wanted to work on was maybe using OSC, Open Sound Control, to send messages. But those would be like messages to trigger things that are already in the scene rather than like sending live audio. I think
I see.
I'm not ready for that yet, but soon.
Actually, I mean, this is actually a really good question to ask Miller when he comes in a couple of weeks,
Yeah.
because apparently Quack Trip, it's sort of a superset of Jack Trip, and apparently it works quite a bit better. Yeah, I think that there should be a way to do it. I mean, at some point, you know, we're really hosing some bandwidth, and my poor computer is really cranking away right now on this with both Zoom and Laura's app running.
Yeah.
This is really, this is also, I mean, a lot of the Unity stuff that she's showing, some of you probably know Unity. If you don't, this is, again, what we're going to be kind of really getting into in next semester. The really cool thing about a lot of these tools is they're free. That just astounds me. You know, Unity, you can just download and start using it. They've got great tutorials online. So if you want to start getting your feet wet, by all means, jump into it, because it's pretty cool. And then you'll gain an appreciation for what Lara has done too. I had a couple of things. Do you want some comments on your application itself?
Sure.
Okay. For some reason, the chat stopped working for me, or at least I couldn't see what I was writing. Maybe everybody else saw like 15 messages that said, "Hey," from me. Not sure why. The second thing is, thinking about movement, one of the things I'd strongly recommend is that you also add, maybe with the shift WASD or shift arrows, what I would call a sachet movement, which wouldn't rotate one way or the other or go forward or back, but would move you left and right.
Yeah.
Okay, because right now it's kind of hard to kind of negotiate, because you have to like go forward and then turn and then go forward and then turn. It's trivial to do, and yeah, I think it could help the experience quite a bit too.
Yeah. I think I should probably add that.
Yeah, it's like three lines of code.
I've been doing it so much on my own app that now I'm used to the way the motion works, so I don't have that perspective. And it's still like there are certain issues where it's like sometimes selects that input field for the chat box, and then I said that if you're like selecting that, then it disables your movement. But then it sometimes does that without me clicking on the input field, or it somehow stops moving. I'm not sure why that's happening.
I think it might be because sometimes it automatically switches to chat for some reason. Like when I'm doing this WASD, it starts typing stuff instead of moving without me selecting chat even.
I had the same problem as well.
Huh, it didn't happen to me. Interesting. That's the Turkish feature, you guys.
And then another thing that I'm finding is that the like stability of everyone's connection is different. Like some people's chat stops working and some people's chat always works. And then the loading times are also different. So for some people who were testing it out, like the files were loading very quickly, and then sometimes like people could not figure out what those screens were for the videos because it was just white for a while. And then also depending on your web browser, like it didn't work for Safari for some people. I don't know.
Yeah, I bet that may be the root of a lot of my problems, because Safari is my default, and I bet it works a lot better on Chrome.
Yeah.
I also noticed, curiously, that my movement, the polarity became not even reversed, but sort of rotated. So my forward arrow would move me backwards diagonal.
Yeah. I really don't know why that's happening, but I'll try to figure it out.
Right. Hey, Laura, I've got like a pretty good movement script I can send to you that has a lot of this. The other thing the movement script does is when you finally get back to VR, it will like go where you're looking, which is pretty cool. You know, and it always maintains forward as the way that you're looking. So that that's kind of nice, because when I showed it to Steve Feiner, and one of the first things that he noticed was he turned around and hit the forward space key and said, "Oh, you made a fundamental error," because you go immediately backwards.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm using a character controller to control the motion.
Write your own. Write your own.
But I should just do it myself. Yeah.
Yeah, you do get the jump feature though.
Yeah, I like the jump feature. Well, the jump feature, I also set like a certain velocity to go up, and then there's a
I'd
gravity
suggest
thing.
one other thing that I included in some of my stuff, because it's possible to get really off into the wilderness somewhere, is to have, you know, an escape key or something that will take you back to kind of like the central place, you know, because yeah, when I started walking through your rooms, all of a sudden I had no idea where I was, which is kind of
Yeah.
cool actually.
I'm thinking some kind of map, or like some map that appears as you go through the rooms. So once you've already kind of explored, then you can see where you've gone and you can get back.
Or after you've battled the other players and you've defeated them.
After you've shot everyone. For the gamers. Yeah. Questions?
Yeah, so, you know, part of the rationale for putting this here, even though again more appropriately it'll be also covered next term, is because our mission is to kind of look at interesting ways of using the web or the internet, and this is one of the most interesting ones that I've seen so far. You know, I'm sure Laura just built the interactivity. You basically just built the entire thing in just like the last 2 weeks or so.
Well, I mean,
So
I reused a lot of stuff. It's like I didn't make the dollhouse from scratch last week.
yeah, but still, you know, you're going to be able to go, you know, given your rate of work, probably in another couple of weeks, this is going to be a pretty astounding thing, you know. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm a little worried that like just anyone can connect. So I've already had like one time when I logged on to, I've been giving group tours to people. And one time I logged on, there was someone named PP who was cyberbullying. And I had no idea who it was. The other thing about using this networking protocol, I'm using Unet, is that it's it's deprecated, and so Unity is going to get rid of it eventually. And the other thing is I am unable to put it on a secure site if you're connecting using WebSockets. So this is like an insecure site. I don't think anyone's gonna mess with it, but you know, I don't know.
yeah, it's, I mean, when like I said, I've been kind of messing with firewalls and port mapping, and you know, I got frustrated because I wasn't getting my messages through my particular local area network, so I turned off my my firewall, and like within 2 minutes, my browser had been infected with malware. So you do have to be careful about this at some point, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Yikes.
I might just have to remake it.
or require some kind of registration before it will allow you to come in. You know, that shouldn't be too hard to do. You just do that as a web interface to the thing itself.
I think that's all I have to share.
I think a field of view adjustment could be great, because it very quickly started giving me motion sickness.
Right. I also, some people love to zoom around. So I think I've been kind of struggling with that when I'm designing these applications, because like especially with the violin painting applications that I built, you can very quickly get dizzy if you want to move it fast and you want to hear the sounds go around really fast. It does make you kind of motion sick. So I've been kind of struggling with like, how do I cap it? Like, at what point do I cap it? And like, do I prevent people from doing that? but
Yeah.
yeah.
This is an area of great research right now. When I mentioned Steve Feiner, he's a computer science professor, a colleague of mine here at Columbia, and he's kind of like one of the godfathers of virtual reality. He was doing augmented reality back in the late 80s and early 90s when you could walk around campus with these weird goggles on and stuff. And he's looking into this, and they've discovered a very interesting way of cutting down on the motion sickness, and it's exactly what Artun was talking about. When you move, if you restrict your field of vision, you won't really notice it, but it greatly circumvents these feelings of motion sickness that people get. So he's been kind of trying to work up on like a plug-in type thing that you can have that would be correlated to when you move and your rate of speed. It would restrict it. And what's remarkable is apparently people don't notice that their field of view is being restricted. It's just some cognitive thing that you have, because apparently it must be the peripheral stuff that makes you really, really ill. I have one other sort of weird story. One of our good friends had over, and she suffers from severe Parkinson's, and she's also kind of really involved in tech, and she was very interested in my application. So I put on, this is a full virtual reality, and I had to put on the goggles, and I thought, oh, this is not going to go well, because Parkinson's, they have stability problems and things like this. One of the things that I notice in working with this stuff is that rotation will give you quick motion sickness, especially if you just rotate quickly.
Yeah.
And this is what was weird. She put on the goggles, and I said, "Be careful of rotation." She says, "How do I rotate?" And I said, "Well, you hold this button down, And she held the button down, and all she did was spin around, and she giggled, and she said, "This is amazing." and it actually it cured some of her tremors for a while. It was bizarre. And her comment was, "I feel like I can fly." It was uncanny. I've spoken to my friend Dave Solzer about this because he actually researches some of this stuff. So who knows, something may come of it.
I mean, and another issue I'm having is that because the sounds are spatialized, people do want to rotate a lot. And so they're definitely just like pressing the button more than is probably healthy for them. Yeah.
Well, gang, yeah, we're pretty, I told Lara to take as much time as she needed, and that was a pretty intensive set of stuff to see. Yeah, again, we're going to be going into some detail on a lot of the techniques that she's using, and we'll have her back, of course. But yeah, I'd like to thank her for taking the time and showing this off, and thank her for doing this incredible work, because yeah, it kind of makes me inspired. You're getting a lot of thank yous in the chat.
Thanks.
Too, okay.
Also, definitely space is open for contributions. So send me an email or friend me on Facebook or something.
Also, as we get into when there's other reasons that you might be interested in exploring, this DigitalOcean setting up a virtual machine stuff. So I might have Lara act as a bit of a consultant on that if people decide to get really into some of these things. So yeah. Everything should be happy. All right, gang. So next class is the day after election. So it's going to be a little bit tenuous. We'll have to see how things go, and we'll kind of take it by ear, play it by ear, whatever you do by ear. Okay. So anyhow, yeah. Thanks everybody, and yeah. See you all later. Lara and Oner, why don't you hang out for just a second afterwards, okay?
Yeah.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.